Welcome back to Soulful and Sober. This is Chrissy. I'm super excited to talk about this topic today. The emotional root of why you keep going back to alcohol or why you're questioning your decision to be alcohol free in the first place. And I think these are very normal experiences because life's, and also we aren't always aware of the underlying things. And I will really break this down and make this really tangible with examples so you can understand. So, I want to talk about what I'm talking about with the emotional root of drinking. So, people will tell me I'm stressed and I drink because I'm stressed. And is sometimes what we call like a habit loop. So, you feel this pain, right? I feel stressed, for example, and you've used alcohol in the past to get rid of the pain. So, it's a pleasure. Now, the pleasure is this is something your brain is being taught and your nervous system is being taught. So it creates a reward. So if I don't feel good, I drink, I feel better. Now you don't feel better long term or you wouldn't, you wouldn't be here, but it creates this reward system in your brain. Your brain learns that alcohol is really comfortable and it feels really good. So your nervous system, your body learns that to get out of this bad feeling, I need this. So there are all these factors that are also come to play. But I want to go even deeper. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the nervous system too, because it's really important because people will be like, I don't get why I keep doing this. And part of it is there's a reward system. Your brain, like, this is what it expects. And when you get into a really, really high level of stress, so your cortisol is through the roof, which is your stress hormone, and that's probably a whole nother discussion, but your body's seeking that relief from alcohol. And so it's really learning that that's what's happening. All right, I'm going to redo that. What is this after? I don't know how many minutes, but if you're listening to this, you'll do this. I'm going to start over. Welcome back to Soulful and Sober. This is Chrissy, and I'm really excited to talk about the root emotional cause of your drinking. A lot of people will come to me and say, I don't like the way I'm feeling with drinking. I don't like how I don't like waking up hungover. I feel like I can get this thing out of control. My life would be better if I stopped drinking. And then they have like a life stressor or something that happens in their life. And they're like, I don't know if I want to stop this forever. And you don't have to say it forever, by the way. I think you don't need to, but I'm just giving you some examples. And they start wondering if it's worth it to stop drinking. And I want to really go under the hood because there's always a deeper reason to what we do and the emotional root. But I also want to just briefly discuss the nervous system before we get there, because I think I need you to understand this. And this doesn't just apply to alcohol, it applies to food and scrolling. When you have something painful in your life, likely, let's say stress, like you are so stressed in your job and you've had alcohol, which is basically, let's say it's pleasure. This is a reward system that is in your brain. And when you do this over and over, it teaches your body that when you're not comfortable or when you're stressed, like drinking will give you pleasure. So I want you to know that because as although the nervous system has learned this, it can unlearn this. And learning about your root emotion is extremely important because some of our emotions can put us legit into the fight flight. So you go into this, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which makes you feel very unsafe. And oftentimes, if we've learned in the past that we can get out of this, we don't want to feel this way. And alcohol or food is going to give us that pleasure. We're going to keep going to it. So it's important at some point to get strategies to deal with some of these things, but you have to understand them first, I believe, to navigate it. And so I'm just stating this is because when we are in a heightened state, we can't think logically. We have all these things happen. But what I am going to get to right now is when we have these emotions. So you might say, um, I'm stressed. Work is so stressful. And maybe you go to a glass of wine, for example. really there could be a lot more underneath the hood. For example, I'm worried that I'm not good enough. You know, they don't see me as being good at my job, right? I can't handle this. What if I fail? So there's maybe more fear. Maybe I don't feel like I'm worthy of something. And I'm going to give you some examples. When I quit drinking and opened my business, it was uncomfortable because it was new. On top of that, no one around me was not drinking. In my mind, I was like, I am by myself. This is hard. And for a moment there, I thought, wow, is this worth it? Because I was so uncomfortable with these emotions. I didn't know how to process these emotions. I didn't know I didn't feel worthy. And I often have quit things in my past when I was younger when they were very hard because I didn't want to fail. And so you can see, I could have told myself, oh, I'm going to drink again because this isn't this isn't worth it. Even though I had that thought and I felt overwhelmed maybe, there was a deeper issue there. It wasn't just that the business was uncomfortable and new. It was bringing up emotions that I've actually not dealt with, that I didn't even know were there. So that is the thing, is that if we don't know about an emotion that is running the freaking show, it's going to feel very debilitating to stop it. And what will happen is when let's say you're like, I'm not drinking today, or I'm not going to get super drunk over the weekend. I'm only going to have 2 drinks. And you don't follow through with the things that you said, you're going to have another emotion, right? Guilt. And maybe you did something out of integrity, shame, right? You're not shame. And these are really, really bad emotions. You're going to feel terrible. And that in itself can be very triggering, right? That can make you want to drink or make you want to eat a pan of brownies. And so then you go to a comfort thing and you don't understand, if you feel these emotions, why can't you stop the thing you're doing? It makes no freaking sense. And it's a deeper thing. I worked with one client and it took her a little bit to get here to figure out these things. She liked her job actually, but she wasn't doing exactly what she wanted in her job, and she didn't believe she could. She had 1,000 limiting beliefs. She didn't believe in herself. She was scared. Again, fear, 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 fear. She was scared, and she didn't even know what was happening because she was drinking, and she was not drinking every day. And this is what I want to really point out. And it's not about if you're drinking every day, if you're not drinking every day. But the thing is you don't have to be a certain drinker to have these things happen. They happen because when you're playing with a hangover, when you're so excited to drink over the weekends, you're looking forward to it, you're looking forward to relax and let loose. And then you have all these underlying emotions you're not addressing. It's like an uphill battle. You don't really understand it. So people do want to drink to feel better. They do want to drink to feel healthy. They do want to drink so they're productive. They're present with their family. There are legitimate reasons why we don't want to drink. And that's sometimes initially the issue. And then there's the deeper stuff where it becomes mucky. And I'm not talking about like severity. I'm talking about things that probably you don't even know that are going on, that you have no clue that are happening. It doesn't have to be so severe, that you're stuck at home for months. It can be little things. And so fear of slowing down. Like, what if I just have time to myself? I can't have time to myself. That's selfish. Maybe you're in a relationship where you don't feel loved. And, I've met women that are in relationships, whether they're married or not married, and they aren't telling their partners how they feel. And so it's coming out in a really, really crappy way when they're drinking. It's coming out as they're angry, mean, crying, and they're not dealing with the actual root issue. And they don't maybe know, or they don't know how to deal with the issue. And it's not necessarily about your relationship, whether it's going to work or not. You're not dealing with your unmet needs. You're not dealing with the things internal, and it's just piling up. And again, sometimes we don't want to feel these emotions. We want to just push them down, and that's not going to work. I also want to say that just because you have fear or you're feeling not worthy, it's not that like the goal is to like never feel any of these things. It's to identify what you're feeling and understand the role it plays. I think we think that we're not supposed to have like emotions. And I also want to point out too, emotions can be happy emotions. when I was drinking with my friends, we got to bond and hang out. Okay, well, you can't bond without alcohol. And it's an identity thing. Who am I without alcohol? Who am I without drinking? There's a version of you that might still feel like you need to drink. There's a version of you that feels like you need to drink. And I think that it's really understanding, what is alcohol solving for you that you think it's solving. I don't really feel like we purposely do things because we want things to feel terrible in our lives. I think that we don't know any better. Meet people that drink again. And I never will tell somebody that, oh, that's so bad. I mean, I don't want someone to have something bad happen, of course. But the thing is this: if you drink again or you're experiencing these really hard emotional things and you're like, gosh, I'm questioning things, I actually think it's a sign. It's a sign you need to work on the thing that you're dealing with. The last time I drank, let me tell you about that. And you might have heard it. It's in my book, Soul Led Sobriety. I had the most stressful day at work. I had the most stressful day at work. And prior to this, I stopped for about 6 months and then started drinking kind of sparingly, thinking I could moderate, which is a joke, honestly. It's just more work, more mental clutter. For prior to the date night I was having with my ex, I was like really excited. I was so excited to have alcohol. I actually thought he wanted me to drink. Now, no one told me that. I just believed it. I believed people wanted me to drink, and I still had this identity as a drinker, that's fun. That's how you connect. And I didn't fundamentally know these things as I was going into it. So I had the worst day at work. I felt somewhat disconnected in the relationship at that particular time. Didn't deal with that. So I was very emotional, and it really taught me the next day after being super hungover, because if you stop drinking for a little bit of time or you reduce the amount you drink and you try to drink the same amount, it's very, very hard. And I'll be honest with you, drinking was kind of like Russian roulette for me, meaning sometimes I could drink and it would go quote unquote well in my mind. And then sometimes it would be terrible and I would have the same amount and I still would be worse. And it was just really hard to predict what was going to happen. But I was very emotional. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I wasn't dealing with my emotions. I wasn't dealing with my emotional things that were going on I didn't know. I was people pleasing. I cared so much what other people thought of me that I wasn't doing what I actually wanted to do. And I didn't have the ability to understand that at that time. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I people please. I like, who cares what people think? It took me a long time, though, to have this identity that I have now. Well, not a long time, but a decent amount of time, because I felt that I wasn't like a terrible drinker. I didn't want to be seen as being judged. I didn't want to tell people what I was doing. And I meet a lot of people that do that in the beginning, and that's okay. You'll get there. But I also think it's a slippery slope, because sometimes we stop doing what we want to do because of the underlying emotion. I won't feel, I won't be worthy. They won't like me. And then why don't they? What matters if somebody doesn't like you? I care what people thought of me that weren't even close with me. And you could probably take it back to your childhood. You could probably take everything back to your childhood, that there was something that happened. And I'm not even talking about severe trauma. You might have severe trauma, but it doesn't have to be severe trauma. But you could have had something that happened to you that brought you to these emotions. And again, it's not about necessarily figuring out the exact emotion day it happened. It's having an understanding that your body and brain and mind is trying to protect you and it's doing its job sometimes. The thing with cortisol and the fight flight is it's not, stress isn't seriously like bad, and the fight flight isn't bad. The problem is when you can't get out of it. When you can't get out of it for everyday stressors. Like, it's one thing if you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, but those animals that run through the saber-toothed tiger, they go back to like the relaxed, calm state. Us in modern day society, we don't. We are chronically stressed. We are chronically overstimulated. We are eating, drinking, numbing, looking forward to alcohol or whatever your vice is, because there's parts of your life that are not maybe that exciting to you. And the alcohol is fitting or filling a human need. And I don't want to get too off topic, but these are the things that I work on with my clients because you don't want to go back to drinking. It's not what you really want. But you can fool yourself with your mind and tell yourself you can. And emotions can be so debilitating as well. And again, that rebound emotion is when you come home and you're like, I'm not going to have a glass of wine. And then you do, or I'm not going to have a lot of drinks. And then you do, then you're dealing with that emotion on top of the other emotions that you don't even know are going on. So you can see why this is really a complex cycle and why people sometimes don't understand why they go back to drinking because there's an underlying root emotion that's there that you're not addressing. And sometimes people aren't in jobs they like. They don't feel good enough. Again, the relationships are struggling in some shape or form. They're not addressing their needs. They don't feel good enough. They want to shrink. They don't think they're worthy of things. And not everybody's aware of this. They're scared they're going to fail. I'm going to fail. And sometimes it's even if I say forever with drinking it, then I'm going to fail. I'm like, so don't say it. And so what people do is they're scared to even do anything with drinking or get help because what if they fail? And the thing is that you can't fail. You learn. You keep learning through your transformation. What I help people with is not just stopping alcohol. What is the root issue? What do you want? And work on those types of things and getting to a happier place where you don't need alcohol. You go inward. Okay, you're sad. Okay, you're lonely. You can identify that and figuring out what you need versus the alcohol, the wine, with the whatever vice you want to do. Because people will go to sugar, people will go to food when they stop drinking. And it's not because they're bad, but it's because sometimes it is filling a void of some sorts, depending on what they do. I worked with a client and she was a pretty much a daily wine drinker. She drank with her husband. It's fine what they did. She switched to ice cream and it wasn't necessarily, oh, is the ice cream bad or good? Does she want to do that? Is that making her happy? And it wasn't. She wasn't happy with the alcohol. She wasn't happy with the ice cream she had every night because she's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm just eating sugar. And she came to the conclusion, like, I think I'm still like numbing to some degree or needing some type of dopamine. And you have to understand too, again, there's always like I guess the biology, not even biology, the physiology of the chemicals and everything that happens when you stop drinking. So it's not necessarily like a straight shot for every single person. Everybody's journey is a bit different. But I can tell you this, alcohol blocks a lot. It dulls emotions. It makes it really hard to get to the root issue of what you want in life and why you're not getting it and why you're using alcohol. And again, you don't have to be a daily drinker. You can be any kind of drinker. If something's not serving you and you feel like it's leading to anything problematic in your life or making you feel really negatively and poorly, that's just a sign. It's all you're just getting data to understand that this isn't working. But I hope that's been helpful. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I wanted to add. Removing alcohol is deep. And if you are interested in ever working with me, I'll drop the link below. I would love to work with you. I have a group program. And one of my favorite things to do is to help people unpack these things because it's really life transforming. And then when you learn that oh, this emotion isn't so bad, it's actually maybe a sign you need to work on this thing. Because believe it or not, I believe that we are led to remove alcohol for a reason. And your transformation, you're going to get the things you have to work on. That's just how this works. And then, you have people in your life that watch you and see you. So for me, when I stopped drinking, it wasn't necessarily for my son. Now I understand things differently. I felt pain and I wanted to feel healthy. And I was so sick of being emotional when I was drinking. I didn't necessarily think about the future me. And it's really hard to think about that stuff when you're in the midst of your journey in the beginning. But now I'm like, wow, I got to work on all these emotional things. And how can that help my son? Right? I can help him with his things. And it's not necessarily about helping him throughout everything throughout life, but it's I think the grit and the traits that I've learned to deal with these hard emotions that numbing them and not dealing with them and really getting to know yourself, that's going to help you through life. And just because something's uncomfortable and just because something is hard doesn't mean you can't do it. And I think it's just really important for me, at least, having a son, being able to teach him these tools. And it's not even always teaching them what we've learned. It's we become a different person. We can deal with things better, differently. I was really dysregulated at one point, turning to food all the time, and that'll be a different topic. And I'm like, wow, I learned about the nervous system. I learned what I was doing and what was happening so I could take more control and have a better way to cope, frankly. I think that as we learn and we're happier and we're more regulated, we can help other people in different ways. And that is a beautiful thing. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.